And now I want to take this time to welcome everybody to the COVID-19 effect on sports. We're going to cover some topics that a lot of people are, quite frankly, are not thinking about because they're so excited about being a fan to a sport that they love, to admire athletes they adore. We are blessed to have former athletes that have played their sport at the highest level, are still participating inside the elevation of student athletes and professional athletes to get to their highest level in the current day. And I'm just blessed to call them friends. And the knowledge that you'll hear tonight will be incredible. I think it'll be thought-provoking. And I think you will enjoy today's Zoom call presented by Recess Getaways. We are more than just a trip. It's a family thing. Now, at this time, I'm gonna ask my partner with ARCS Concepts, my tech guy, and you all guys know him as Smooth Russ from Urban Ham. Russ, if you would be so nice to bring up my partners and, well, my esteemed panelists for tonight's conversation. Here they all are. Awesome, awesome, awesome. At this time, I'm going to just go around the horn and ask everyone to introduce themselves and what city they are logged in from. And then we'll get right into the questions. So first, I'll give you Mr. Swearingen. Please tell us where you're logged in from.
Hi, my name is Clarence Swearingen. I am from Memphis, Tennessee, living currently in Knoxville, Tennessee as an administrator for Knox County Schools, also the athletic director for Vine Middle School here in Knoxville. And very, very excited, man, to be a part of such wonderful guests, man. I'm looking forward to hearing from each one of our guests today, and very, very excited, man, for this opportunity, sir.
Thanks for being here, Clarence. Mr. Field, please let the people know where you're from and what you're doing. Mr. Field, are you muted? Is Mr. Field muted? Mr. Field, would you please hit the mute button on your Zoom, please? I believe you're muted. Russ?
It's in the left-hand corner. There you go.
Oh, there you go, there you go, Mr. Field. Please,
Did
once again,
you guys hear me?
No, we didn't hear you. Muted.
Okay. I was saying good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Field. I'm from New Jersey. I work in the Patterson school system. I also am an advocate for a group called Garden State Scholars, a group of young men from 8th grade to 12th grade that I mentor. And I also are coming from the lens of having some involvement in professional athletics for a period of time as well. And I'm pleased to be here to support a friend, colleague, Sterl the Pearl.
Thanks for being here, Madam Dominique Blake, if you would be so kind to unmute yourself and tell everybody about where you are and what you do.
Thank you, Sterling. Thank you so much for having me. I made it safely. So my name is Dominique Blake, everyone. 2012 Olympic medalist and current pro athlete. So my aspirations actually were to compete in the Olympic Games this summer in Tokyo, but COVID happened and that didn't happen. So we got pushed to next year for the Tokyo Games. So I am currently in Fayetteville, Arkansas, training as a pro athlete and currently multitasking with being an entrepreneur. So I own the #1 personal training company here in Northwest Arkansas. So we're called Diamond Training. We're virtual, local, and mobile. So I have my hands in a couple pots, but those are the two main things that I do. So I'm, again, very glad to be here. So much gratitude and love to you all for hopping on this live with us.
Appreciate you, Dominique. Mr. Sims, will you please explain to the public exactly what it is you do and where you're
Yes,
at.
sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Sterling Hinton. So I am chiming in from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a NFL certified agent. This is my 20th year in the business. I am a former player myself, and so this is my ministry, and certainly I'm glad to be here to to give my insight on COVID-19 and certainly support whatever efforts that you're doing.
Thank you, big brother Tommy Sims. Next up is Madam Sane, Miss Felicia Sane.
Good evening. My name is Felicia Sane. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, but I am currently living in Springdale. I am the Associate Athletic Director for Academics at the University of Arkansas.
Thank you for being here, Felicia. Next
Thank
up,
you for having me.
Mr. Jeffers. Please explain to the people what it is, where you are and what you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Pearl, thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to being on this panel. This is great. I'm going to learn a lot myself. But my name's Andy Jeffers, and I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, grew up in East Tennessee. But I'm kind of in the world of how I met Pearl, in the world of TV and video production, and currently own my own company, Sports and Entertainment Media, and work with NBC Sports and Fox Sports, covering NASCAR events. And I help our sales group do the in-car cameras that you see during the races. And on top of that, do a myriad of just various other things in production around Knoxville or Tennessee. Do a lot of music stuff too. But man, I am so excited, and thanks, Pearl, for having me on and being with this group. It's going to be awesome.
Appreciate you, AJ. Appreciate you, brother. Next up, Mr. Jose Tony Perilla.
Hey guys, Sterling, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I am Jose Perilla. I'm a 92, 96 Olympian, track and field. And what I'm currently doing now is I just kind of took the leap of going from the corporate world and doing the sports performance training myself. So I was a massage therapist for a long time. I ended up being a coach. Hope to get back into that, but as of right now, I'm just in the sports performance thing. I just really enjoy doing what I really wanted to do. So just kind of having the time of my life doing that, and just looking forward to see what happens after all this stuff, after all this dust settles.
Well, I think we all are, brother. We all looking for this dust to settle real fast. I tell you that. We had two other esteemed guests who unfortunately were unable to make it. Mr. Thomas Stallworth, who is currently the first assistant strength and conditioning coach for the New York Giants of the NFL. He was unfortunate he could not make it. Also, Mr. Tamaris T. Martin, who is currently the wide receivers and passing game coordinator for University of Tennessee and former national champion quarterback for University of Tennessee. He was unable to make it. Had an event come up that he and Coach Pruitt had to attend, but they both are here in spirit. And I do believe with the guests that were able to make it this evening, you will get more than enough information to understand the COVID effect on athletics. So the first question goes to Mr. Perilla. Due to the COVID-19 effect pandemic, the Olympics were postponed the next year. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, talk about the effect and emotionally and physically on the current athletes that were training for the Olympics.
I think emotionally, what you do is you basically just put your life on hold so that you can peak on those 4 years. You just train every year in between the Olympics. We either have the World Championships or we have an off year. And I mean, at least in track and field. I know other sports have a very similar setup. So we do have like rungs in the ladder that we do take. Having this pandemic come up, I believe a lot of the smarter athletes, a lot of the athletes are going to really be able to utilize this opportunity to work on a lot of their weaknesses, work on their strengths, give their body a little bit of a chance to rest from just traveling as much and racing, and really, really focus on just getting to getting their bodies to be in peak performance. That's why I believe next year the Olympics is going to have an unbelievable, the run up to the games is going to have an unbelievable record breaking strings that are going to be throughout all these different sports, whether it's swimming or track and field or anything like that. So I think physically the athletes are going to be very, very prepared. I think emotionally there are certain windows that are smaller than others, and I think some of those athletes might end up kind of having that window close on them. But overall, it's I see it as a benefit. I'm more of a glass half full type guy, so I see it as a benefit.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Field, question. Please unmute yourself. How did not having spring sports affect your schools and students?
Well, I'll answer that question, Sterling, by stating that from a district and state standpoint, when you're looking at peak performance and you're looking at seniors that are looking to get into school that may have not had the greatest junior year, now coaches don't have an opportunity to really evaluate that spring talent to see what he or she may be able to do to turn things around. The other things that you're looking at, the standpoint of how did it affect them from a social and emotional perspective? Being able to eat, how they're eating, the nutrition aspect of things, the breakfast program, the lunch program. So in our state, a lot of those things were jeopardized. In our state, we have very affluent cities, and then we have some that are not. So the social economic piece to this whole thing really showed its face, and our district was able to sit there and meet the needs of our students from that perspective.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Next up, Ms. Sain, how has COVID-19 affected your student athletes academically in terms of being eligible to even get a chance to compete?
Well, my first thought was like, how are we going to support our students while they're at home? It was kind of frustrating at first because we had to get into a routine. The students were anxious and some of them were depressed and overwhelmed. They are going home where they didn't have the structures that we allowed for them to have, that we can provide the resources and the accommodations that they needed. So it was touch and go. We had to start tutoring online. We had our academic counselors and our learning specialists and my staff, everybody on our staff, the graduate assistants and all of us, we were just really trying to encourage our student athletes the best that they can, because some of them, they were just sleeping till 12 o'clock in the afternoon before they get up and start doing some work. So we had to start getting into a routine. And thankfully, the outcome of that is that we were able to be successful. So in normal circumstances and where people are, we didn't have that much of a gap. But the reason that we had that gap, that we didn't have that much of a gap, is because of the university going to a pass-fail grading system. Or, they have a choice. If you get a D or an F, it didn't count in your GPA calculation. There's some of those students are on the borderline of making sure that they're competing, at least a 2-point GPA, cumulative GPA. So that was one of the factors. The factor was that the NCAA had to allow some type of concession for all the things that go into whatever all this COVID-19 has affected. Just even with our international students, they're like 6, 7 hours, 8 hours away. And at first, some of the professors wanted them to sign in to Blackboard during the same time that the class originally was scheduled. You can't do that. You cannot do that. we had to make sure that the International Student Office knew about it, and then we were able to work through those things. But fortunately, we are at a good spot right now, but without those concessions, we wouldn't be.
Wow. See, NCAA making concessions over the COVID-19 pandemic makes sure athletes didn't have the opportunity to compete. Appreciate
Sterling.
you coming to me. Yes.
To Miss Felicia's point, it really gave us an opportunity. It really gave us an opportunity to hone in on the essence of what a student athlete really is. Because at the end of the day, if we're looking at the clearinghouse process, right? You can press that academics, and those academics, if you were a predictor going into your junior or senior year, it just gave you a wake-up call why the urgency of now impressing the academic eligibility piece as a student athlete really hit home.
Yeah.
And why it's necessary. And those are the things that you talk about as coaches and as administrators and as teachers, and we don't dive deep. And the students think it's just blah, 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 blah. But what happened with this pandemic really opened the eyes of how realistic and real it can be.
Yeah.
You hate to see that happen, but it was a wake-up call. Then you have those students, again, prep schools. Now I'm gonna have to sit there, what are we doing? So it's a lot to do that, and just have this opportunity to have some vertical articulation with the college administrator is nice with this panel as well.
Appreciate that piggyback, Mr. Field. Next question goes to Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims, how did the COVID-19 pandemic affect the development of professional athletes?
So one of the biggest concerns as an agent that we had with the draft and guys who went undrafted is that they did not get a chance to have mini camps where they can go in and show, hey, I'm a much better player than what I was graded. And so you're going to have those marginal players, those borderline players that are probably not going to make the team this year just because they didn't have the time to be in front of the coaches, to learn a system. And, with these new proposals of probably not having any preseason games, they won't have a chance to make the team. So it really affected, the undrafted kids who a lot of the rosters, are made up of undrafted kids. Everybody's not a, first, second round draft pick. And so, I think it really hurt those undrafted kids that they didn't get a chance to really have their skills develop in a professional setting.
Wow. That's strong, because we all know as athletes how important it is to get some good film. We all know that importance.
Absolutely. And then classroom, and then, going into a new environment, new locker room, new coaches, new teammates. So the adjustment period isn't there as well. And so now, you're going to throw 90 kids into a camp. And as we all know, 50% of the roster is already decided, so you just got camp bodies now, right, just practicing and not getting a real opportunity to make to live out their dream and make a squad.
Unfortunately. Moving on to Mr. Jeffers. They're talking about, with professional baseball potentially coming back next Thursday, the following Thursday, professional basketball, NBA basketball potentially coming back, and not having any fans. As a man who's vice president of marketing for NASCAR, I want you to speak more about the atmosphere and what it's actually like having an event, a professional event, with no fans.
It's I would say like anybody who's played, it don't matter what level, even when you're in T-ball or Pee-wee and stuff, your parents being there means a lot to you. Your friends being there mean a lot to you. every level that you go up, high school, college, professional, the fans, it changes because it's the energy. It's the tingling, the hair on your neck, the nervousness you get as an athlete. I think, playing baseball, I mean, even in a small deal, it matters a lot that you have a good crowd. It kind of changes your focus a little bit. Now, the great athletes, as you guys all have been and been in there, there's a focus point where you zone all that out. But from the atmosphere standpoint and looking at the marketing side and looking at how it looks on TV when you come on air, it has been different. It's very weird. And even all of our drivers have mentioned it in post-race interviews and everything, that how crazy, how weird it is, how you get in the car, you focus, and the driver is driving and doing their job. So just like you're going to see with baseball next week in the NBA, they're going to do their job. But how many times do you see that the crowd changes the momentum of a game? And
home field advantage, home court advantage.
And that's everything.
Yeah.
So then last night we had the All-Star race. First race back with fans. We had 27,000 fans in attendance at Bristol Motor Speedway last night. And I looked over, and Regan Smith, who's one of our Fox Sports announcers, I'm standing with him on pit road. And we're talking about, I was like, the energy level is next level now. I mean, it's something we haven't experienced for the last 2 months. And so even that, our defending champion, Kyle Busch, who you love or hate him because of the way he drives and how he comments stuff, but we're standing there with Kyle Busch, and he turns and he goes, I love this because when they announce my name, I'm going to get booed, and that fires me up. And that is what makes sports. It's the booing. You don't know how much that feeds, especially on the road. How many times you gone on the road and you get booed and it boom. And I think that's the difference. And I think that's where, from a marketing standpoint, I think everybody's going to have their growing pains. But last night was a great step. I think I commend NASCAR. I commend Bristol Motor Speedway and what they did last night. So it was an important deal. But fans are everything, and it truly matters. TV money also is a big deal. So they're going to have to look at how you let fans in and expose the players. The fans last night, drivers are walking out back to their car, motor coach, and the fans are there. Now, they didn't sign any autographs, but the guys did take time to talk, take pictures, selfies, and say hello. And that means the whole world to the fans. So atmosphere, everything last night, night and day when you don't have fans.
Well, I would be remiss, Mr. Jefferson, if I didn't ask you about a question I'm quite sure is at the on the top of everybody's tongue that's watching inside my Recess Getaways group and across the world, with the removal of the Confederate flag in NASCAR.
Yeah.
How does that feel to the competitors? How's that add to the atmosphere? Speak about how that incredible move and what it's done for NASCAR.
Well, I think a lot to be commended to NASCAR. I think there's a lot to be they followed what Bubba Wallace wanted to do. Bubba is, Pearl, you and I know he's a big Tennessee fan. So we've gotten to know Bubba over the years. And I think with that, everybody started listening. And I think they understood what it meant to Bubba. Brad Daugherty is an owner of JTG Daugherty Racing. And Brad, he has spoken out before about this. And just from a business standpoint of how hard it is when you have that symbol flying above your racetrack, it's offensive. It bothers people. And so I think NASCAR, it's something they've looked at for years. They've asked people, please don't, we got to be a family. And that's the atmosphere that we're trying to bring. And that's the atmosphere that NASCAR has done. And I think they listened to Bubba. It's a serious matter. It's something that is very offensive. And, thank goodness it's gone. There's no need for it because we go to race. We're there to put on an event. and watch cars go fast. Watch these guys do crazy things going 200 miles an hour. We don't want, you know, a fan. We don't want, there's so much in the world of, you've been to a race too, Pearl. You've been, how much marketing is involved in that?
Yes.
And how many sponsors you got involved? Well, I've seen, you have a person that might be offended by that, and you're trying to sell a deal, and you're Brad Daugherty, and you're trying to bring a sponsor in, and you're like, yeah, please don't mind that, you know, please don't look at that. But now it's gone, and it's a great thing. It makes everything. It opens the door up for more fans. AK was waving the flag last night. It was awesome. He dropped the green flag for the start of the race.
Awesome.
And it was awesome. He's had a great time. We've had opened up a door to so many more fans who've been like, you know what, that's bothered me so long, but now, you know, you get by it. And then the people who are going to complain about it, it's the show on the track. It's not that don't matter. It's to make everybody feel welcome.
I can tell you this, AJ, on behalf of all the progressive people that I know, all my friends that are associated with Recess Getaways, all my friends in this esteemed panel, and those across the world that have been moved to positivity with the unfortunate thing with Mr. Floyd. We thank NASCAR, and if you can get that word to them on behalf of everybody on this panel and everybody behind the Recess Getaways group and all this concept, please let them know we appreciate that more.
I would spread the word, because it's a serious matter. And that's all that matters, is to make everybody, to get rid of anything that would be a symbol of hate, that would be a symbol of something that would, it's offensive.
Yes.
And so, man, it's just the right move. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And it's all love, baby. It's all love. It's all love. Next question goes to Ms. Madam Blake. Madam Blake, how has COVID-19 affected your training for the Olympics and your training business?
Well, first of all, that's a fantastic question. So as far as my training for the Olympics, I mean, you know, just being an athlete, things are gonna happen naturally, whether it be crazy weather during a meet, or just, you know, it being outdoor season. And we, you know, I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. The saying is, if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes, because it's guaranteed to change and be extremely different. So having to readjust and become your best self, regardless of the conditions, is something that we kind of are just conditioned to do naturally as, you know, NCAA athletes, Division I athletes, Olympians, whatever you want to say. A part of being great is looking at your surroundings, understanding that things and the circumstances can change at any minute, and adapting immediately and rising to the occasion. So I don't think that this is any different, but it is different because it's global. But in this, I like to make things really simple. So one of our panel members here said earlier, you know, he's a kind of half glass half full type of guy. I'm a glass half full type of woman. And I think that to be super successful, we have to look toward what's next and what we can do to be great in the future. You know, moving forward, how are we going to adapt to this situation? Because a second wave is coming, and it's worse than when it just started. So we have to really adapt, and we have to come up with a game plan. So our coach here, Chris Johnson, shout out to Coach Johnson. He's the assistant women's head coach here at the University of Arkansas, and he's also the coach for the professional athletes. He's done a fantastic job of just reeling us in. We had a sit down in the beginning of April, and he said, look, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can't stop training. You know, you guys are professionals. This is your job. Nobody is going to wake you up out of bed in the morning. You know, Adidas, Puma, whoever you're signed to, they're paying you for a job, right? So you have to be prepared and ready at any given time, because this is the type of situation where we don't know, because it's never happened before. So as a professional, you have to get up and go to work regardless of whatever the outcome is going to be, because this is what you signed up for. So that's been our mindset. We've been on grass for a long time. We've built our own makeshift weight rooms. Thank God Nordic Track has partnered with me, and they just sent me a whole home gym. So I got lucky.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, and it was right before COVID hit, so they didn't even know that this was gonna happen. They just loved my story. They loved my presence on social media, and they're like, "We need to build you a home gym," and I said yes. So I got lucky. So sometimes I have some training partners come over here and lift at my house, and you know, it's kind of an open door policy. We all train together. So I know them. It's not, you know, a new person coming into my home lifting. So we're all safe. And so, you know, honestly, we know that the games are scheduled for next year. We don't know what's going to happen next year, but that's just the mindset. You have to hang on to hope, and you have to train with that same intensity every day, knowing that it's your job, you're a professional, and you have to rise to the occasion. Because if outside opens up next week and my agent calls me and says, "Hey, I got you into a wonderful race in Germany," I have to be able to say, "Yes, I'm prepared and I can go." You know what I mean? The playing field is not going to be leveled across all the continents, because, you know, when the first wave hit in Europe, they were just kind of everybody, the government said you have to stay home. So they weren't able to like leave their houses like we were on this side of the world, you know? So it's going to be very interesting. I think people have a wonderful opportunity to heal. All of anything that I felt last year is completely gone. I'm so grateful. I had a couple tweaks in my hamstring, and, you know, so as far as on the recovery side, my body is feeling great. I can't tell you last time I felt this great. So, you know, there are a lot of things to look forward to, and I think we're going to be in a fantastic position if we're able to be successful. On the business side, to answer your question, luckily, I have really created a phenomenal business plan when it comes to personal training. So Diamond Training is the name of the company. We're known as Northwest Arkansas's #1 training company. So we're virtual, local, and mobile. So we have a facility. We can go to anybody within 30 to 45 minutes out of Fayetteville. So we bring the party to you, you know, if you're not able to come to us at our location. And
Party
you know,
order pain.
Yeah, you know, so we have all the equipment that one could possibly need, and then we're virtual. We have a lot of corporate clients that travel a lot. You know, a lot of people that vacation. Your body doesn't care if you're in Bahamas or Dubai; it's still going to gain and lose weight at the same rate. So if you're committed to your goals, we've just built in a phenomenal plan and a system to make sure that you're rising to the occasion no matter what. As an athlete, I know what that's like. So the mindset that goes behind training with somebody and the accountability is at 1,000% all the time. I know all of the excuses. I know everything that you could possibly tell me about soreness. I know what to eat. I know what kind of supplementation to recommend. And so it's really fun to be in this kind of business, because I've always been just really motivated by my parents to find your passions in life and create a business out of it. So it's not a job for me at all. It has been a wonderful, wonderful situation to look at people, help them become the best versions of themselves. So throughout this whole entire thing, all of our clients either, you know, well, first of all, we're now 100% outside. We're not indoors at all. So the only thing we work around is the weather. And other than training outside, we've kind of eliminated going into homes just to keep our training staff safe. And then we've just utilized virtual training. So a lot of our clients utilize that. So, you know, it's been fun. I've been able to balance both being a pro athlete and being a business owner, and, you know, sustaining both. So it's been wonderful. So I can't wait to see how much more creative we can become and lean on each other and help support each other. So interesting times, but I'm grateful.
Well, we're riding with you, girl. We're riding with
you. Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
You did. You did a great job, too. Thank you. Mr. Swearingen. Now, this is interesting. It's funny, he's the last person on the first round of questioning, but this is a man who's, you know, he's played basketball at Division I level. He's made it to the NBA. He's played overseas, and now he's back, you know, as a vice principal and athletic director at a junior high school, that we would consider to be challenging to be at. And he's lovingly referred to as Mr. C there. So I asked you this question, Mr. Swearingen. Mr. C stands for his first name is Clarence. So make sure I clarify where that nickname came from. Please explain how you were able to promote your students to high school after the COVID-19 pandemic shut your junior high school down in March.
Oh man, thank you. That's an excellent question. I think one of the biggest things, and I think not only did this have an effect on our school, which is a predominantly Black school, but a lot of schools around the country, it was just a frozen situation. You know, everything was put on hold. We came from spring break, and next thing you know, here we are where we are now. And I think one of the biggest issues was that, you know, you look at disparities in our communities in most of the urban schools, and not only just, you know, urban schools, but you look at disparities all around the country. And one of the biggest things that we face right now is you know, our kids, you know, lack of the ability to read and to do math. That's a big issue. And when COVID came and affected all of that, it put everybody on a hold. But luckily, the system did a really good job of being able to distribute computers to those students who were 8th graders moving into high school, and we were able to get those students caught up. Our teachers did an excellent job throughout the county of just making sure that all of our students got what they needed to be successful. And we were able to move on and promote those kids to the 9th grade. Now, it was a tough situation because it was something new, like it was for everyone else in this country. It was a new situation and unfamiliar territory for all of us. But I have to give my hats off to Knox County Schools for thinking outside the box and thinking of ways. We came up with a KCS home where we were able to give students classroom work to be able to make sure we made up those grades. And so we pushed through it, and we're still right now trying to build this plane as we go. It's a tough situation right now for all of our educators and for all of our principals and all of our superintendents, because this is unfamiliar territory for all of us, as I said earlier. And so my hat goes off to all of our staff who really worked hard to make sure that we provided our students with the things that they need to be successful in life.
Next question goes to Mr. Sims, Tommy Sims. With you being in the agent arena and representing athletes, and as you stated earlier on your first question, how the unfortunate reality of COVID has not allowed some of the athletes to get enough looks, to get the opportunity to show their skills to where they can impress a coach. My question to you is, how much trust are you now putting in the rating systems for future professional athletes with limited access to them due to COVID?
Certainly, a great question. So certainly, COVID-19 has limited the in-person meetings, and so we are doing a lot of Zoom meetings with prospects that are coming out of college, as well as interviewing veteran players who are looking to change their agencies. So it's very hard, to really gauge someone's energy, how attentive they are with your presentation. Nothing beats an in-person meeting where you can read body language, and so that really hurts as it relates to really getting to know a prospect. Certainly we send a lot of information out on our services, our brochures, our teams, our experience, but it's nothing like meeting one-on-one with the athlete and his family so they can get a feel of you. And so, we're overcoming that by at least trying to meet with players who are not in states where the COVID-19 is spiking. So there are certain states that we're trying to focus more on the Northeast states now. Some of the top prospects there, like at Penn State, it's not as hot as Florida or Texas. but certainly it makes a, it's an obstacle that all agencies are facing, is that how do you actually get a chance to really get to know a prospect or a veteran player when you can't meet with them and really feel the vibe.
It's all about relationships. Maybe how, something I wanted to talk to one of our guests who could not make it, Coach T. Martin. The gap that COVID has unfortunately made is with the coaches and the players, that relationship that, we all as players had, especially with our position coaches, that was our guys, and the relationships, I guess, especially in your business, with being an agent and or the time you invest in these athletes to help them get to the highest level, you want to have that relationship so you understand your client. Right? To the imagine that's different for that.
It's a relationship business. It's a relationship business, and kids are entrusting you with their dreams. And so, the families want to see you and meet you and, kick the tire, look you up and down. And, they're not allowed to have that right now. And so it's a moving target with colleges and certainly with professional sports. Next week, the NFL teams are supposed to report. And today we just got a report that 72 players tested positive for COVID-19. And so you can only imagine once they get back into the facilities and you're around 90 people, that number will just grow exponentially. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions, certainly around safety and health, and more importantly, around economics. So are they going to pay the players? Okay. Football is certainly different from basketball and baseball, where the contracts are guaranteed. So if they don't show up, they still get paid. With professional football, that's not the landscape. There are very few guaranteed contracts, especially the Tom Brady's of the world. A lot of guys are not on guaranteed contracts. Everybody's not making $20 million. These guys want to get back and play. So, it's a big tug of war about, hey, are we going to pay them if they decided to sit at home? Are we going to pay them if they happen to miss a couple games because they got to get quarantined? So the economics of it is really kicking in, because these players are saying, hey, I have families I got to take care of, but I want to be safe as well. And so we've been having meetings all week with the players union, also with the league, trying to figure out, okay, what's the best scenario that these players will be able to come back and be safe. That's the most important thing. I mean, certainly we all want football, but there are kids involved, their wives, their moms, their grandmothers, and players. And so they don't want to be around 90 guys in the afternoon and then come back home and expose their families to it. So they're talking about, do we quarantine them and put them in a bubble in the hotel and you not see your kids for 4 months?
Wow.
There's a lot to be, to be discussed within the next couple of weeks. And more importantly, it's coming down to money. And so the owners want to put on some type of product on the field, and whether it be, in front of fans or not, they've got to honor those TV contracts. And so they're saying, we have the CBA. The CBA says you have to report, and so you'll see guys come. They may have some delays in Texas and California and Florida where it's spiking, but most guys are getting ready to go back, and they can't afford to not sit out, and so we'll see what happens.
Wow.
Sterl.
Sterl, I think that's a great point too, because one of the things that we're facing right now in Knox County schools is, they laid out a plan for schools, but one of the biggest issues that we face is that safety issue. They require masks in all of your restaurants, and right now you look at Walmart, you look at all these grocery stores, you look at all these businesses that are requiring masks for customers to come in, but we're bringing kids back into a building. At Vine, we talking about 534 kids in a school that is not prepared for that. we're not prepared in a couple of ways. One of the ways is through the ventilation system. A lot of people a lot of people don't understand, but when you don't have proper ventilation in your building, and then you're faced with with these crises with COVID, that creates a risk for not only the students but also our teachers. And then not only that, you talking about at least parents who are 60, 70 years old, and you bring them back into this environment, and you expect teachers to feel comfortable, and you expect administrators to feel comfortable doing it, and not to mention teachers and administrators with underlying conditions that we have to think about. Knox County has put something in place for with underlying conditions, and also students and parents who just don't feel like this is a great a great place to be at this time. We have virtual learning that is an option for some of our parents, and some of them have chosen to do the virtual option, and some parents will say, what, I have to work, so I have to make sure that my son or my daughter gets to school. That's a tough situation to be in, and it's a scary situation. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and so I look at that situation as something very, very serious for me, because I don't want to bring anything home to my family. And so we got some things, man, that really need to be addressed, but need to be looked at it with a laser like focus on really what's best for us. Is this a political thing, or is this something that my safety is your first priority? And so we're faced to make some decisions that will make a difference, because you don't want to ever let your team down. You always want to be that person who says, hey, I can deal with this. It's like as an athlete, you have an injury, you're hurt, but you still want to get out there and play for your team. All right, and it's the same thing that a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators in the system really need to take in consideration.
Wow. Appreciate that, Clarence. Next question is going to Mr. Carilla. Tony, do you believe the postponement of the Olympics will limit the chance of some athletes even making the USA team to represent the USA in the Olympics due to their age?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm a glass half full type guy. It might limit some, but at the same time, it might create opportunities for others.
Wow.
So, you have to take the good. You have to take the good with the bad. If you have a buffet, can't just take one or two things. You got to go ahead and accept the whole buffet. So it might go ahead and take some. Go ahead and eliminate some opportunities for certain athletes, but also for your own sanity, you have to realize it's going to create some opportunities for others. I have a son that just started running at ETSU. He's running with my old coach, Coach Watts, and that's going to possibly give him another year to develop. Right now, we're working on things that he hasn't worked on before. So I think it's going to do that. Also another Vol, Justin Gatlin, he had the opportunity. He had the opportunity when he served his suspension that he didn't compete for a while. So having not competed really helped his body out, so that he could run longer. So I think that if you would have given let's say Usain Bolt or Mo Farah, any of those guys, an extra year just to train and rest, and it's just like Miss Blake said, she got a bunch of those little nicks and bumps are gone. That might actually prolong somebody's career. So can it affect somebody's career? Absolutely. But but you have to look at the other side. It's going to, I believe, help some others as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's awesome right there, Tony. Mr. Field, this is an interesting question right here, because your background as a Division III All-American, 2 dual sport athlete in football and in track. Now you're back in your home state of New Jersey, and you're working working with the scholars of New Jersey, and guy who's seen NFL, the CFL, was Man of the Year in arena football and won a championship in arena football with the Tampa Bay Storm. Working as a director for the state of New Jersey Scholars, how did the COVID-19 affect your administration and athletic budgets?
Well, unfortunately, the athletic budgets in our state and district is already pressed, and it really opened up again. And we mentioned it earlier, and I just want to take a second to go back, if I can. I mentioned social economics from the start in my initial conversation. Ms. Blake also mentioned that piece. Mr. Sims also mentioned social economics. I think this pandemic has opened up a lot of conversation, which is healthy, but now you see the core of the human being, the core of leadership. What do I mean? Mr. Sims stated clearly, he's talking about his players at the end, they need to be safe and healthy. Now that opens up a conversation about wealth. Being a bubble guy, being a Division III student athlete, we all go professional, mostly, I'm one of the 1 percentile, in something else, right? Division III, you get a handshake, you get your academics, that's first and foremost, we're non-scholarship. But when we have an opportunity to create wealth, Ms. Blake is working on her business profession. Some of the decisions that Mr. Sims' athletes represent, as he represents his athletes, he has an opportunity to talk to them about building wealth, because guess what? What if athletics didn't stop? And if you're not guaranteed, what I'm dealing with the scholars, the young men, is being able to defend yourself mentally. Number one, staying strong mentally, staying strong physically, and understanding the essence of academics and how it's so important. While you named those different things, I had an opportunity I'm proud of to achieve, but at the end of the day, I was in a situation coming out of a housing project from a single parent home where I feel I had no choice but to be successful. Now, my son's experience is very different, right? It's very different. He didn't have to go through that, but I'm going to take the time to show those young men what to do, measure what is important, and then understand that you shouldn't be forced to do anything. But if you don't get your education or find a way to be competitive mentally in life beyond the athletics, you put yourself in a very unique bubble to be a part of everlasting poverty.
Oh yeah.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. Huh. Well, next question. Next question goes to Ms. Sane. Ms. Sane, how did not having spring sports affect your school and your students?
Well, it affected the school financially. There was a financial impact on that, especially with baseball being a revenue sport. For the students, for the spring sports, I want to even go back to the winter sports. You know, women's basketball, they had an opportunity to play in the conference tournament. And they were going to the NCAA tournament. And this is the first time in a few years that we were able to go. And I feel bad for that senior who did the work in the previous year to get to that point, bought in and said, okay, I'm going to do it. And then see that they had the opportunity to go to the tournament. And then now it's gone, you know, and now they're just thinking about what could have happened. And, you know, they were devastated. They were upset. They were frustrated. You know, it was a lot of different things that was going on with just not only spring sports, but winter sports too, because just with track and field, like the indoor season, the SEC, men and women, that we both won the conference thing. Because last year, women's track and field, they won the indoor, the outdoor, and cross country. Wow. So we have students who are competing at a high level and want to achieve. You already know that at SEC it just means more. So it was important. In baseball, they were striving to get back to the World Series. Because they have been there in the last 3 years. So it was devastating to them. And then on top of that, the NCAA said, okay, we are going to grant for this upcoming year where you can have more people on your team. The limits are not limited right now. So everybody has a year to come back. But what's not being told is this: after the year, coaches, and they have to still manage their squad size. So just say, for instance, sophomore, if you were a sophomore playing softball this year, next year, coming year, you're still going to be a sophomore, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get all your 3 years. You may only go get 2 because they still have to recruit and for the incoming students. So the basis of all of this is a financial impact. We honored for our seniors to come back, but some of them decided that they don't want to come back. They move it on because they have graduated, or several of our baseball players, were drafted in the league. So, and then there are some that said, I may have a better situation somewhere else, and they transfer because some of those spring sports and winter sports, those are equivalent sports, so you don't have a full ride.
Wow.
So, Ms. Sain,
wait a minute. Part of that is just making sure that we were to do right by our students who still have the opportunity to come back and play, because a lot of those seniors were on track to graduate or have graduated, and now they have an opportunity to get their graduate paid for, graduate school paid for, get their master's degree. So, but a part of all of that, the basis of all of that is the financial impact.
Wow. Let's feel
Sterling. Yeah, I just wanted to say to Ms. Sain's point, what was mentioned, and we tagged on it a little bit, but I mentioned the social and emotional aspect and the mental health. When you as a student athlete and as a professional athlete, the mind is so important. When you have that kind of trauma, you think of someone that's training, that's been thinking about this since they're 8 years old, to sit there to get to the national championship to compete for the title, and then you don't have the opportunity. That mental health piece is so critical to address as well. Absolutely. And that, we all know that from experience. When you're on that football team and you're on that depth chart and you feel it's your turn and you don't get that rotation, you don't get that opportunity that you waited for, the emotional stress and mental stress of dealing with that. We have athletes, men and women, that deal from that tragedy now. I'm not here to give psychological evaluations, nor am I certified. But what I can tell you is that is serious, and it weighs a tremendous amount of pressure on your athletes way after they compete. So we must be mindful of that, and that is a topic maybe later on from your series, Sterl, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
We'll get into that. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Next question, on to Mr. Geffers. If you own your own production company and being blessed with being vice president marketing for NASCAR, I want to talk to you from a production standpoint of a sporting event. But we all concerned about the players. We're all concerned about the athletes, coaches. In NASCAR, you're worried about the vehicles. And when we talk about the economic stress on those pieces of the athletic or sports arena. The one segment which is vital to putting on the event and making it come alive is the production piece. How many cameramen are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic? How many soundmen? How many trucks that ride up and down the highway with these big satellites on them to park next to the stadiums, the arenas to put these events on? Speak to me in the panel and everyone worldwide about how that segment of the sports presentation has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I think you got to look at it, Pearl, as in the main thing when you're talking about economic. TV deals are huge. Those are what, I mean, the conferences depend on, the teams depend on, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL. The TV contracts are huge. And from a technical side, I think anybody, and I think everybody was hopeful with NASCAR and what Fox Sports did to bring back a sport, because it was huge in the fact that, and people had to realize that the CDC and wherever you go, so if it was South Carolina and Darlington, or if it was in Miami and Florida, or all the way up in Pocono, Pennsylvania, you have to work with the local government. And so you have to get everything approved through them. But from a standpoint of what Fox Sports did, they took the control and started working on a plan to on the production trucks. You're talking about ventilation in schools. Well, they revamped the trucks for ventilation and to do everything every night. After we struck and everybody said good night and left the compound, there was a group that came in and used UV to clean and disinfect everything. You think about all the little things, even the bathrooms, even thinking about catering. Wow. That's huge right now. You've seen some of the incidents with the NBA right now with the food. It's everything is affected by this. And with an athlete, you got to think about that's the fuel. Yeah. That's the fuel to feed. And so even on the TV side of things, I tip my hat to Fox and everything they did, because there was protocols you have to go through. So unfortunately in NASCAR, you've been to our TV compound, Pearl, and stuff. We put on the Super Bowl every week because it takes that much to do. Well, with budget cuts, the CDC limits you now. So this is something the university and everybody covering that you're going to have to look at. Like I know in England with soccer, they had a number you have to hit, and you cannot go exceed that many people on a field or in a stadium. So it did hurt. There's several of my friends. There were several people. I'm very lucky because I had 2 different jobs I was doing on site. But that's one of the things we had several cameramen, our A2 in the booth. Our announcers didn't come back on site. They did everything out of Charlotte in a studio. So technology has helped. So there's the opportunity. There's that glass half full, because you got to look at a way to make it work. And they've done that. But then on the downside of it is jobs. There are jobs that got cut. And it wasn't like because Fox wanted to, it was because the CDC and the government and local, state, you have to go by all these guidelines. And there's so much behind the scenes that like many fans don't understand why it's so important. Why the NBA is in Orlando, why is baseball, they proposed going in Arizona or Florida. You got to look at the cost on all that kind of stuff. But there's also the fact that Pennsylvania, we had to move a schedule because Pennsylvania wasn't going to allow us to come. We're looking at Texas this weekend. Texas is a hot spot, and we're racing in Dallas this weekend. So it's always on a spindle. I think, you're talking about being an athlete, being able to adapt quick. That's you had to. I always tell people, don't write anything in pen this year, write it in pencil, because everything can change at the flip of a hat. And it is affecting the TV side of things, but that TV money is so important. That's paying for a lot of stuff. And so we got to sell advertising, but then that also we're paying whatever the conference, or paying the NBA or conference, whatever it is, that money is huge. NASCAR, the TV money that Fox and NBC put into those contracts, it huge. Wow. So it's got to happen. But yeah, it's affected everybody. And even behind the scenes, it's, like for me with the in-car cameras, I have to disinfect after we install the cameras. I pretty much clean the inside of that car out just because we have to show and prove that we're taking care of those drivers. They can't get sick.
Wow. It's actually really motivating to know that people are thinking about the people, and thinking about the health of the people who perform these sports and these events first, because health is first. Health is primary.
I think that's been the number one thing, Pearl. And it's been nice with Fox, and I'm seeing it with NBC as they're taking over the schedule. There's no cutting back on the safety. Every meeting, every conference call we've had has been, if you do not feel safe, you let us know, and we're going to make this work and stuff. We're going to figure it out. And I think that's something with athletics. I think that's with NASCAR. They figured a way to do it. So it was so important in Darlington because NFL, NBA, everybody was on hand to see how we did it. Because if we can do it and pull it off, then there's hope for the fall. And and we didn't see this second spike coming that we're ever, like a lot of the states are going through. So my hat's off to any educator, any coach, any administrator to navigate this, because it's different. It's a complete different beast. And as a fan, I'm greedy because I want sports. I want to see. I'm tired of not having something else. But then you got to think of the safety of the players, the trainers, the staff, the crews, everybody that's on site.
Wow. Appreciate that. Thank you. Next question is going to Madam Blake. They're coming back to see. All right. I'm going to ask you a question that's pretty, and this is important to hear your perspective of it. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Olympics were postponed. From your perspective, talk about the effect it's having on the athletes from a mental and physical standpoint.
I can really just speak about my personal experience. It's been very interesting. I mean, up to a month ago, we were preparing for meets in Europe, and then we have news reports saying that our president has struck up an argument with the European powers that be, and so they're retaliating because he won't let Europeans into America. And now our race plans have just up and poofed in the air because he decided he wanted to get on Twitter and say whatever he wanted to say. So it's been really interesting. Honestly, at this point, our mindset is we're looking towards being great for next year's season. And we're kind of just preparing for whatever happened this season. You know what I mean? The wonderful thing about the opportunities that we have within our space here is that we can stay in shape and be race ready if we need to be. You know what I mean? I don't think at this point, a majority of the athletes around the world are going to be, racing blistering times. So any opportunity that we get, should it present itself to compete, I think we'll be in great company. You know what I mean? Anybody would just be happy about the opportunity to just race at this point. So, I think that, just to answer your question, psychologically, it's been a lot, but I think that still me looking at the great things, because I always look for the good in every single situation, no matter how it's presented, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the things that Coach Johnson and I really have in common, and that he really appreciates about me as an athlete or just as a person. I don't choose to subscribe to the negativity in any situation, no matter how it's presented, because it could be an opportunity bundled in there. And so I look at COVID like, okay, it's just sports is a small extension of life. Had COVID-19 not happened, we wouldn't have been able to sit with ourselves at home and get justice for Black people globally, right? We'd be so distracted with NFL and the basketball. Oh, I can't go to the protest because I got tickets to the Giants game. That doesn't exist. So for the greater good as an athlete, we're all in this together, and we're still focused on the work that needs to be done. We've done a lot here locally here in Arkansas and Fayetteville, just as athletes putting on different events, you know. So we're focused on sports, but the agenda for us is still greater because a majority, I'd say 95, 98% of our squad, we're people of color. So we have two different things that we're focused on here. A lot of other people don't have that agenda, maybe because they're not Black, but in addition to sports being on hold, my life, my legacy, my kids, my family, you know, there are other things that are dependent on what happens right now and the decisions that are being made, not only with COVID, but how we choose to move forward as humanity. You know, I'm kind of jumping into a different conversation here, but it's all happening at the same time, and it's happening to us. So we're watching it in real time. We're dealing with COVID. We're dealing with social justice, and we're having to really balance out everything as athletes simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's a lot on our plates to kind of really show up to practice with every day and be okay in the 2 hours that we have to warm up, whether it be in the weight room or on the track or on the grass or whatever, to really be focused and give our best every day. It's emotionally draining. I've watched my teammates absolutely sometimes break down mid, you know, rep. And I'm like, girl, what's going on? Are you hurt? Is it your hamstring? She's like, no, I got stopped by the police. And then there's that. So it's just like, we're all here as accountability for each other to, you know, lift each other up on the sports side, but also be there for each other just as a human being to make sure that we're okay. So, and if we do travel to other countries, are we going to be looked at differently? Are we going to be treated like animals? Are we going to be received okay? Because now different things are happening. If people of color Black people go to China, it's a different ball game right now. If I have a race in China, I'm going to be received differently. So there's that.
Well, and I'm glad you touched on those points, because those are things that are happening, like you said, simultaneously, and we have to deal with them. And those that are still competing, those are in administration, those that are coaching, representing athletes, you have to deal with that, because, you know, everyone says champions are made from the neck up. So if you got some things bothering you in your brain, that one slip of a concentration can cost you a championship, or even cost you an opportunity to make a play to even get to the championship. So I get it.
There you go.
You get it. And I'm glad you brought that up. And what's interesting is I'm just glad to say it and say that I'm proud to, amongst this panel, you know, we have people that are amongst members of some service organizations, for the Divine Nine. I'm proud to say we have members of Kappa Alpha Psi, Delta Sigma Theta, Phi Beta Sigma, and Omega Psi Phi present on the phone on the Zoom call. So those people even know that we're doing the work. And speaking of doing the work, I have one more question for Mr. Swearingen. And it's a question we've heard before, but, you know, like I say, he's in it. You know, Ahmad and I go back to, you know, when we were kids in New Jersey. And, you know, we know what it's like to come from urban America to paint a picture without going too deep. You know, our rival high school was Patterson Eastside High School, of which this movie Lean On Me was made, and we were there during those times. So that can give you a picture. And now I have a friend of mine, Mr. Swearingen, who's in a junior high school, and I tell you, it's a lot different than it was in the 80s in high school, in 2000s in the junior high. So I'm gonna ask you this question, because, you know, we've all found a way to have sports be our thing we can lean on to give us our hope to make a way out, to get an education. I sit here on this Zoom call knowing I would not be able to get a college education, definitely not one to the quality I have right now, had it not been for sports at the University of Tennessee. You know, how did sports, not having spring sports, affect your school and your students, Mr. Swearingen? I mean, how did it affect them?
Oh man, you hit a good point earlier today. And I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, man. I came straight from the hood and was was hungry to make sure that I was successful, and I tried to do everything in my power to make sure that my parents didn't have to pay for college, and so that was my drive. But to answer that question, I mean, it's tough, man, because you have so many of these young kids, all of our sports and all of our kids that worked hard during that whole year, who put in the time, who put in the effort, who put in the hours, who put in the sweat and the tears, to have that not available for them, was really tough, man. It was a really tough situation, especially for 8th grade students who were trying to move on to high school. They didn't have an opportunity to be seen. I think Brother Moss said something about that earlier today, that when you don't have that opportunity, man, it's a mental breakdown. It's a psychological breakdown. It's the trauma. It's some of those, it's some of everything. It's like a whole balled up effect that occurs in the psychic, and you have kids who have spent that time every day preparing for this opportunity, and then have that opportunity taken away from them, man. It affected not only just the school, but it affected our community, because you had people who were looking forward to soccer. You had people who were looking forward to volleyball. You had people who were looking forward to football. You had people who had put in their time and put in their work. You had coaches who had prepared for it. You had fans who were looking forward to it, and to not have that opportunity really affected us, not only financially too. I mean, you have, because some of our sports are revenue making sports, and when you don't have that opportunity to make that money, it's already tough enough in a middle school, because there's only really one sport in our area that makes money, and that's basketball. Now you might have other sports outside of our county that football is a main sport on the junior high or the middle school level. But in our sense, it's only basketball. Basketball is how we make our money. Not only that, it's really just Vine has a rich tradition in sports and basketball. So when you don't have those opportunities for our kids to shine and to have an opportunity to be successful, it affects us. It affects us seriously.
And that's amazing how, and I think this generation of young men and women who are taking this, on the chin, if you will, going to grow up with some tough chins. I mean, this is something that, we're living history right now. I mean, we're all going through this at the same time. I know some of us wish we were going through it, at a different time for as timing, but who knows what the right time is for something like this? We just got to learn as we go, and we're all going to learn a lot from it. And right now, first of all, I want to thank all you guys for your time, but I would like for you to just stay with me for a couple of more minutes, because I have a couple of closing remarks that I want to bring to light to our people that are watching in our 126,000 group on Recess Getaways, and those across the world who may have tagged in and watched this Zoom call. Russ, if you will bring up the closing remarks slides for me, I want to read those right now. And this is just something I want everybody to think about as we want and hope for football to happen in the fall, and just for an event to happen. And these are just basic numbers, and I want you to just feel the information to make something happen. So we have a capacity of a stadium that holds 100,000 people with 75,000 season ticket holders. Based on the information right now that have been given out to allow events to happen, if they would come up with a plan with 20% of capacity, which would be 20,000 people only allowed to come to the event, whether it's a football game, a soccer game, if they bring fans back, if each spread evenly, let's say it's spread evenly, and we got 20 gates at that stadium, spread evenly, there are 1,000 people per gate. To properly social distance, that'll be 2 feet per person, 6 feet per person. That'll be 2 yards per person between each person. If you did that just to get inside the stadium at 20% capacity, and we know of all these colleges, some of these professional football teams that have 100,000 plus stadiums if you had 2 yards per person. Now, I'm sorry for that typo. And it was 6 feet per person between each person just to get in the gate. If they were spread evenly at 1,000 people per gate, at 20 gates at 20,000 get inside the stadium, that line would be over a mile long. Over a mile long to get into the stadium. Next slide, please. From an event management personnel standpoint, this is just prior to kickoff of a football game. That's one security staff member that oversees 25 people. That's 40 security members at each gate. 800 security staff members, extra members managing just people getting inside the stadium. If it takes 1 minute to give a temperature, check bags, and sanitize somebody's hands, and you got a 1 o'clock kickoff for a football game, the lines will need to start beginning to form at 7 a.m. in the morning. Next slide, please. During the game, how does the management staff go about, the event management staff go about monitoring social distancing? Well, let's say you go one seated in the stands. What procedure do you follow when someone needs to use the restroom? You require people to have on masks, or will the whole row have to go use the restroom? Their masks will by crossing over people at the end of the row. How do you manage? Is that social distancing? Are you letting somebody cross in front of you? What about standing in line at concession stands while others are in line to use the restroom? How do you manage social distancing with things like that that are going to happen at a big game? This will require more security staff, which will impact the financial ability to host the event. Next slide. What about after the game? What is the procedure for leaving the stadium? Do you dismiss people by individual roles to ensure proper social distancing? Let's say that was the way to go. We all been in elementary school. We had to go to the bathroom at the same time. Maybe your row went to the restroom at the time we got up and got in line to go to lunch at the same time. Something like that got into effect. That will make the time spent at a game, if you arrive 6 hours prior to being seated before kickoff, the actual game lasts 4 hours. Leaving the stadium will take 5 to 6 hours more just to get out the stadium. To enjoy a football game, you're looking at potentially 15 to 16 hour day. Now, we've all said, and I've heard from every last one of you guys on this panel, we have to move. We have to adjust. As athletes, we know that. We have to adjust. You can take that down now, Russ. We have to adjust. I know there are smart people in rooms right now trying to figure out these bottlenecks. I know right now that the commentary given by you esteemed panelists enlightened a portion of this planet to issues they had no thought about. These are things that we're going to have to really be adroit with as it comes to accommodating sports with COVID-19. From age 5 to 105, it's going to be different. To play, enjoy, profit, and live with and live for sports. And COVID-19 has got us there. Andy Jeffers, Maya Fields, Dominique Blake, Tommy Sims, Tony Perilla, woo, C-Swag. I appreciate all y'all coming out here tonight and spending no time with us on the Zoom call. Hope everybody's felt good about what they heard. Hope you feel good about what you said. And I thank you because it's all good when friends come together and you got quality friends like you guys are to share a little wisdom on things that you know about to the planet. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you
Thank
too,
you.
Sterl, man. Thanks for that opportunity, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you so much.
You guys have a great night and be safe.
All right. Cheers,
The
everybody.
same.
Thank you.
Love.
Felicia,
Yo.
same.